My name is Kieran Sanders Fleming, and this is my course project presentation for animal behavior. My project is titled Antisocial Aggression in Differently Aged Common Marmosets. It is an ethogram study of captive living common marmosets in a research lab setting. I chose common marmosets living in these particular conditions because I work as an animal care technician at the Wisconsin National Primate Research Center, allowing me to work closely with many common marmoset individuals. My research question for my course project was, how does age impact the presence or absence of antisocial aggression within common marmosets? Some things we already know about social behaviors in common marmosets include that captivity impacts the degree of social tolerance displayed within common marmoset groups, as higher levels of social tolerance have been found in wild versus captive populations. That personality variation in captive common marmosets has been linked to different age groups, and that similar age-personality relationships have been observed within humans and common marmosets. The things that are not yet known about social behavior in common marmosets are the exact role that age plays in the development of common marmoset personalities, how personality is related to observable behaviors in common marmosets, the cause of the similarities between age-personality relationships in common marmosets and humans, and whether results will be consistent upon repeated testing of these concepts in common marmosets. I hypothesize that younger common marmosets will display higher rates of antisocial aggression than older individuals because their younger age may be reflective of a lesser degree of social integration. For my project, I am using focal animal sampling and instantaneous recording with a 1-minute interval. For my social behavior ethogram, I added examples of various observable behaviors in common marmosets that fit into the provided behavioral categories. The biggest change I made was choosing to forego the category of antisocial environment in favor of pro-social resting behavior. For my activity ethogram, I again added examples of various behaviors I expected to see, such as examples of object interaction and behaviors associated with self-grooming. I chose to leave my stereotypic behavior ethogram the exact same, as all of the behaviors seemed potentially applicable to the common marmosets. For my feeding behavior ethogram, I characterized each of the food items provided to the common marmosets at various times. I was able to list at least one example for each food category. I also chose to make minimal changes to my resting behavior ethogram, choosing only to add sitting to the same category as laying down. This is because I have personally observed an interesting half-sitting, half-laying position in the common marmosets previously. The results of my overall behavioral time budget showed that the most commonly performed behavior was by far social behaviors. In comparison, the least common behaviors were stereotypic, which didn't occur at all, non-visible behaviors, which were not scoreable for this project, and solo resting behaviors. I was surprised at the lack of observed stereotypic behaviors, as they can be common in captive animals and are rooted in poor associations with their environment. I was also surprised to find a considerable difference in the rates of solo resting behaviors as compared to resting with family members. The results of my social behavior time budget are particularly important as they relate most closely to my hypothesis and research question. I found that the most common behaviors were pro-social behaviors like playing with and grooming conspecifics. I also found there were a few answers for the least common behaviors. Antisocial displacement and yield behaviors did not occur at all, while antisocial aggression and displacement behaviors were not recorded in the spreadsheet at all, but were actually observed at least once, each as behaviors displayed within conspecifics interacting directly with my focal animal. I was not expecting the lack of observable antisocial aggression, and since this was the behavior most closely related to my hypothesis, this was a bit disappointing. I again was slightly surprised by the considerable preference shown for resting with group members rather than alone. This speaks to the importance of social bonds in common marmosets. And finally, my results for my feeding behavior time budget showed that the most commonly consumed type of food item was vegetation, and food was most commonly consumed from below an animal's eye line. I did not observe any feeding of loose food items, which was not surprising, since these items are typically handed directly to an animal by a human caregiver, rather than being left within their enclosures. The other least commonly observed behaviors were feeding on enriched food items as well as consuming food items above the eye line. I was surprised by the minimal observation of enriched feeding behaviors, as I know these would be easily observable if more observation sessions were to be conducted. My results were overall largely inconclusive and therefore failed to support my hypothesis. My results were somewhat similar to the findings of Schlofferger et al. In 2016, as they failed to find any age-personality relationship. My results were also similar to Koski et al.'s findings in 2017, where further experimentation was needed due to insignificant results. My findings also differed from the findings of Koski et al. In 2017, however, since they found more significant results than I did, since my results were inconclusive. My results were also very different than what was found in 2022 by Maselkova et al., as they observed a significant relationship between age and various personality and behavioral traits. Some potential reasons for these differences in results is that the other researchers were studying the impacts of multiple factors on behavior rather than just one like I was with age. They were also better able to distinguish between personality traits and how these are related to behaviors within common marmosets. Finally, their results were due to experimentation rather than observation, in which observer effects are attempted to be minimized. All in all, behavior in common marmosets is both learned and innate, and can be traced genetically through ancestors in related animals like other marmoset species. Animal behavior is very useful in terms of animal care, as it allows us to learn about the impacts of captivity on various species, and to use these findings to increase the quality of care provided to these captive animals. In conclusion, animal cognition is a very complex subject, with many factors impacting behavior and many real-world applications to understanding animal behavior. Additionally, ethogram studies allow us to view animals' natural behaviors and the opportunity to construct behavioral time budgets of various species. If given the chance to revise my protocols in ethogram to repeat this study, I would do a better job of overall planning and organization to ensure accurate comparisons of differently aged individuals, such as using 2 separate data spreadsheets to separate observation records by age of focal animal, rather than just using one spreadsheet and combining all of my data into one. And I would also do a better job of considering the consistency of other variables within my research. For example, I would do 3 observations in the morning, 3 observations in the afternoon and 3 observations at night of an adult individual, and then I would complete 3 observations in the morning, afternoon, and at night at the exact same times, following a juvenile individual instead, to ensure that other variables are being accounted for and are being consistent throughout my observation periods and within my data, to ensure the overall accuracy of my results when studying age. These are the references of the literary articles that I reviewed throughout my research. And here are the references for the images included within this PowerPoint presentation. Thank you for listening.